I think that it's if you're a mainstream artist and you have avenues, if you're for Curb Records or if you're on Capitol Records or Sony or who it may be, you are in a much better place than someone like me who is completely independent. And I rely on the internet radio, satellite radio, and those types of avenues for my exposure. I will not be on your FM dial, and I have songs that say that. You will not find my music on country radio. And if that avenue is gone, then where am I? What do I do? And on a separate note with what Ms. Clark was saying, another thing that the reason I do the music that I do is its preservation of history. When I'm out there, I talk about, I've mentioned Hank Williams 100 times already, and Cash and Farron Young, and you can go to Elvis Presley or Little Richard or B.B. King. None of these guys are on broadcast radio today. You can find them all over internet radio, and that's where these niche markets are coming from. You have people who are going back, finding artists that they like to listen to, and here's this station providing this where you don't have it on a broadcast station. And I think that, and to borrow from what Mr. Eisworth was saying about a library, this is going to become a library of American music in the future. This will be a place where you can go, and when I was 14 years old, I got a Hank Williams Sr. CD. That's how I found him. 20 years from now, they're not going to be making CDs. So what avenue will artists in the future who are just little kids now have to find this music if all you have left is your broadcast mainstream radio?
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if I still have the time, just one thing I thought might be helpful is to kind of clarify more or less procedurally where we're at this point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the copyright board, royalty board's decision came out back in, it was in May? Is that correct?
March.
Finalized?
March.
Okay.
March.
And it goes into effect as of July 15th. Suit apparently has been filed in the federal. It's at this point. It's in the district or the Court of Appeals here in D.C. Asking for a stay on the board's decision. If the court doesn't act within that time, and here's my question: as of July 15th, if they don't act, these rates do go in effect. And is there any agreement, or is there does somebody have a pretty good idea what is likely to happen at that time? Now, if the stay is granted, of course, then we stay with the current rates that we're in right now and until the court would ultimately make a decision. And these rates are also retroactive back to beginning of 2006 as well, as my understanding. But in any event, what is the sentiment here on what would happen on July 15th if the court does not issue a stay and these rates go into effect?
I think you're going to see a lot of internet radio stations go off the air. And it'll be a calculated risk. Some may stay on the air and technically be in violation of copyright law if they do stay on the air because they will not have paid their back royalties. Again, hoping that all this works out. But I think you're going to see a lot of people who just shut the doors and go home. And maybe this gets resolved at some point in a way that they can come back and this the industry can kind of thrive again. And I think you're going to see large webcasters go away too. How many? I don't know, but I think I guarantee you're going to see some of them go away.
Okay. Does anybody else want to weigh in? You don't have to, but anyway, Mr. Silverman and Mr. Lee.
There may be a reduction. I don't know if it'll happen right on July 15th, but there'll be some, and some of it will be protests like the Day of Silence. But I think internet radio, we'll see a lot of web radio continue, and I think it's really important that it does continue, and I think that Sound Exchange is working on a compromise for everyone. They're working on a compromise for public radio, non-commercial web radio, the smaller webcasters, and they're in dialogue on that. They're doing the right thing. It's just the hard thing for me to understand is how the webcasters have called for an impartial board to make a decision. They made a decision, and now they're saying they want a do-over. I don't really understand how that works, and so they're trying to raise a bill to overturn this or go in another direction when it was them who asked for this decision, and then they didn't agree with the decision. So and yet Sound Exchange has come and said, all right, the decision may have been too staunch. Let's modify it a way to make it work. We're all in a business that's really difficult. It's in transition. Music companies are in the worst position. Internet radio is in a crazy position too, but it's a new business. There was no internet radio 5 years ago. You know, I'm 26 years old in the business here, and my business is threatened, you know, and I might be disintermediated too. So, you know, we all have to work it out. No one knows what's going to come tomorrow, and we can't expect we're going to come up with a solution that's going to work forever. In 3 years or 4 years, we're going to have to go back and say, this didn't work, let's tune it, let's fix it, but we're really working toward a solution. Musicians need web radio. You know, Tommy Boy needs web radio, and we want to have web radio, but we also need a fair payment to musicians and to labels as well. So we're trying to find that common ground. And as you can see, we're all here doing it. So there really doesn't need to be an act of Congress right now. We're in the process doing the right thing.
Well, let me go to Mr. Lee, and then we go to Mr. Alcorn.
I just want to be clear. Sound Exchange has offered to the college radio stations, the community broadcasting, religious broadcasters, and non-commercials to continue at the very same rate that we had in 2003, up through 2010. You may say, well, why not continue that through 2020? I think because none of us know what the industry is going to look like, 3 years from now or 4 years from now. Also, with my good friend from Cincinnati here, NPR has not paid anything at this point since 2004, I believe it is, because we're still trying to negotiate a way or a deal for NPR to become involved in this, and the contract ran out, or the legislation ran out, I believe, in 2004. So we're not attempting to do a huge takeover. We're attempting to meet the concerns that have been raised to us.
Okay. Mr. Alcorn?
I just want to say that everyone keeps saying don't know why Congress is involved in this. I think it's important for Congress to be involved in this because as we move forward in the 21st century, these types of issues will keep coming up as stuff becomes more and more accessible, free or piracy, whatever it may be. But Congress needs to come in now before this stuff gets way out of hand and make sure that there are some guidelines there. Sure, you'll have to work around them before 2010, 2020, but there needs to be a base guideline for what this business will look like, and it needs to be fair to all parties involved.
Mr. Eisworth?
Yes, I thank my colleague from the FFM. We won't negotiate in public, as he assured me, so we won't do that. But speaking just for myself as an individual, if the dire consequences that have been suggested here come to play, I think what I see happening after the 15th of next month or shortly thereafter, we have to keep in mind that the Internet knows no boundaries. This may very well be the ultimate outsourcing. If there's a vacuum created because of the departure of small or intermediate or large webcasters in this country, there's nothing to prevent webcasters from overseas, Canada, Mexico, Europe, to fill that gap. And I'm not sure that that's something we, as domestic webcasters, broadcasters, people in the music and entertainment industry, want to see happen.
Mr. Kelly?
I just wanted to say in total agreement. I think that's a major concern for all of us of that happening with it being outsourced and essentially losing their listenership and their listenership never returning, so subsequently never having the revenue streams of the royalties ever coming back because that stuff has been sourced out of the United States, so therefore they're not subject to the paying royalties. We all know how fickle the internet is, but the outsourcing
they
is a
still
big
would
concern.
be subject. I'm sorry, they still would be subject. Foreign broadcasters here would be collected by Sound Exchange as well, and they are right now.
Thank you. I yield back balance of my time, Madam Chair.
Thank you.